W420 Radio Network.com.
America's Cannabis Conversation of the W420 Radio Network comes to you each week with news, information, and entertainment on all aspects of the cannabis industry. We provide information, education, and insight to our listeners. For this, we offer a credible forum to discuss the ever-changing world of medical and adult-use marijuana.
We are now on our fourth season of broadcasting.
And we thank you, the listeners, for making our program a success. A look back on how it all began and a look forward for the program and the industry, we have a very special guest with us today. That is none other than the founder and CEO of W420 Radio Network himself, Marc Corsi. Marc saw the writing on the wall for what has become the fastest growing industry since the home computer industry. Yet there was a need to consolidate information on all parts of this multi-million-dollar boom. There was a niche to fill for what it all means to you as a producer or consumer. This led to the birth of the professional approach to a new professional magazine and podcast forum. And you can find it all at W420RadioNetwork.com. So here to talk about it all is our own Marc Corsi. Marc, welcome to America's Cannabis Conversation.
Thank you, David, and thank you for the very nice introduction and the background about W420 and what the content and the information that we'd like to provide to all our listeners.
Well, I think that people are hungry for information, but they don't know where to turn because there's a plethora, a glut of information out there in all directions, and it's fragmented, and there doesn't seem to be one place where you can find everything you want presented in a professional forum. Until recently, the cannabis industry was not even perceived as a viable, lucrative business, but now things have changed. We have seen a rapid shift in legalization and production, which comes with the rise of a multi-billion-dollar boost to state economies. Still, consumers had few resources to monitor the ever-changing world of cannabis in an all-encompassing manner. People were asking, how are the laws going to change next? What is the latest breakthroughs in growing? How can dispensary owners adapt to changing markets? What are the recent scientific breakthroughs in medical research? How does one adapt their marketing in the current COVID economy? And where does one find tips on advanced investing in cannabis? You know, up until now, you would have to just go in all these different fragmented forms of information to try to find it all. But when you have a digest that interviews, researches, and consolidates this for you in one location, then you've got it all at your fingertips. So, Marc, has America's Cannabis Conversation sought to become a podcast magazine of sorts, to bring all of these topics and more under one roof, to make it a one-stop shop for all things cannabis?
Well, David, I think you made some very good points here. And the fact of the matter is when we did launch in October of 2019, we were more of a singular show on the business side, and what we've grown into is multifaceted. And we've touched different points in terms of the industry, but we've taken it on like a business sense and a consumer sense, which is a difficult thing to do. I mean, my background with running a advertising and PR firm for many years, you had a consumer side or a business side, and you address both of these within this one podcast. Now, the challenging things now is the fragmentation that you discuss is quite interesting because right now we have 2 million active shows. There's approximately 48 million podcast episodes. And if you go back down to the fundamental part of life when we had a couple television networks and 3, and even when Fox came was a big thing, but then you had cable who could go ahead and fragment and break down audience sizes by zip code. Well, in this industry, there's a lot of information with a lot of different topics that you can review. I mean, let's just go back to the podcast right now and see what we're at. That 50% of all people listen to a podcast, which is 162 million, and 21% increase in the last 5 years. And with those, there's an average of 41 monthly listeners. So now you have a very dynamic change in the industry over the last years, and with the cannabis industry, this is accepted because regular radio networks, it's not acceptable, or television to advertise, and they're trying to reach those different people in different ways. And when you start looking at the advertising side, and which is nice, is that ads are acceptable to different people, listeners, and that 78% of the audience, they don't mind to listen to them. They actually get educated by the messages of either ads or sponsorships. So that is a quite interesting and dynamic change. When we started advertising with people many years ago, the fundamentals were you use television for reach, radio for frequency, you'd use print, and a lot of people came on the yellow pages. Then you've gone ahead and dynamically gone through the social media side, and even when the internet started, there's only 12 colors at that particular point in time that you could use. And now with the interactive part, the podcast, and then how simple and easy it is to stream. Now, we're on approximately 20 different outlets, but we are also on the three major ones that represent most of all the listenerships on podcasts, which are Spotify and Apple, and on those particular platforms. But again, we're on about 20 different. So our audience, in analyzing it and growing it, but also looking at the different platforms, we've kind of refined and defined how we've done business in terms of a singular announcer. But then this year I introduced Women in Cannabis, and then we went ahead and had lifestyle. We have very good people that have produced those shows for us. So now what's happened is you made a good point about all these different products. And if you go on W420 Radio, you have the business side. You have a doctor talking about a strain of cannabis that can cure pancreatic cancer. We'll have our national representative and our lobbyists go ahead and discuss what's happening on the floor in Congress or at the Senate level. But then again, we'll have somebody like the former Assemblyman Willie Brown for 30 years, who was Speaker of the House for 16 years, talk on a California base and a national base. And then we'll go ahead and talk with somebody who created the CBD jelly bean, which he started many years ago, which was Jelly Belly. So we have very interesting things. I mean, I can go ahead and look at the chef that we've had, CBD ice creams that we've had, but we'll also touch base with technology and where the dispensaries, where the banking is. And now we're going into insurance and other different marketplaces that you can reach out on these different podcasts. And with us and with the integrity and the people that we have, we became the authority, which I'm quite proud of.
Yes.
And it is coming along rather well. You mentioned the range of guests that have been on the show so far. These are medical doctors and Harvard researchers, as you mentioned, elected officials, multi-million-dollar growers, and everybody from the person in the street who just wants to tell their own story to the CEO of the largest cannabis company in the world. So they're finding America's cannabis conversation to be their voice to reach out to the people. So we had to present something to attract these guests, which in turn have help us amass our listeners. And one of the reasons why, I think, is because you transcend the paradigm shifts that we've seen in business. As you mentioned, your skills were honed back in the days of conventional television, radio, media, advertising, and broadcasting. We disseminated and dispersed into a multitude of media beyond that, which is fragmented. And that's a key word, because a lot of today's media are using the new media without following the rules that made traditional media successful in the first place. So when you create a podcast, you don't want to be an amateur production with a couple of guys sitting on a couch just speaking what's on their mind ad hoc. It's nice to have a professional presentation with high-level interviews.
You know something, David? That is such a very good point, and that's what I'm proud about our team. The fact of the matter is that I go back to the fundamental discipline in terms of it's got to be about the content and the integrity of the content. The fact of the matter is that I've looked and analyzed this industry and some of the magazines, and they're a pay-for-play on press releases. I mean, you can write what you want. You pay one of these magazines, online or traditional, and you can go ahead and create what you want. What we do is we go back to the fundamental side of, hey, we are a reporter. We are talk show hosts. We look at the integrity. We look if it's real, if it's viable, and if it's something good for our listeners. And that's the one thing that I like about our fundamental execution of what we do and the information that we disseminate through all these different platforms. Now, what is nice is to have the experience throughout the years and the understanding about the business and how to go ahead and grow it, and also to make sure that our advertisers or sponsors benefit from there. And as you said, the fragmentation has been an unbelievable experience for everybody in terms of just even the cable networks on television or the frequency on radio or Sirius or whatever those are. Now we have the podcast. So we're taking advantage of that, moving our audience, as I said, when we have a lifestyle, a women in business, women in cannabis, and all these different facets that then extend our reach to different people that are interested in our platform. So that's what I like, again, is the fundamental ethical integrity that everybody here at W420 adheres to.
And that is sorely needed in the multitude of media today. And that's what you bring on the syndication of America's Cannabis Conversation, as it goes out to every major podcast feed, to YouTube, to some syndicated television feeds. It is on terrestrial radio in various major cities, and it appears on all of the major networks. And the website posts provide a wealth of searchable information at W420 Radio Network.com. So it's bringing the old standards of professionalism into the new media. And this is where new media is eventually going to have to catch up. We were making it up as we went along. And now the introduction of this program gives us the professionalism in both. But speaking of professionalism, Mark, you touched on your background a little bit. It's an immense background. I couldn't go through it all, but you have a long and distinguished career in marketing and advertising. Your awards are too numerous to mention, but I would like to just mention a few. Please don't get embarrassed. The American Advertising Federation awarded you the prestigious Silver Medal Award and the Ad Man of the Year. You were also elected chairman of their Western region. You received more than 100 Addy Awards in a 4-year period and several Best of Show and Best of Division awards. The People's Choice Award was given to you several different years. You have received the AdMark Award, and you served on the Council of the Governor. This list goes on and on. Suffice it to say, you have a history of accomplishment. Now you have assembled a team of professionals. They include marketers, technicians, an award-winning journalist, and more to produce this consolidated audio magazine for information and entertainment, both in the general and the specific. So, Mark, why have you chosen podcasting? Is it because it's become the fastest source of up-to-the-minute reporting on-demand listening, or is this simply the most efficient way to syndicate on a broadcast scale to the public at large?
Well, first of all, David, thank you very much for going past or reviewing part of my career. And I forgot a lot about those, and those were very nice, and I've met a lot of nice people, and I was very proactive in the industry, and that's what I usually do with anything I get involved with. So you mentioned in terms of why I'm involved, help create the podcasts that we have today. Because it's interesting, the fact of the matter is that you have to keep on evolving and rebranding or continuing your growth in anything, but in mostly particular this industry. When I started out, I started in the radio business for 5 years, and that was interesting. I started on both sides. I did sports, I covered them, I sold, understood the marketing, and what success needed to happen. But then what happened was I got involved in the agency business, but it was advertising, then public relation, then design, and then I became an integrated marketing communication firm, which we did advertising, design, direct marketing, media, public relation, content, custom publishing, interactive. And the thing is, we'd listen and we'd come up with the best solution for you on how to execute that and come up with the best economy also. So now, moving and growing, these are the other things that have occurred where we've gone through now podcasting and where that's going to go in the growth. I think I told you earlier in terms of the growth in the millions of dollars, are going from a 1.2 billion in 2021 to 3.7 billion in 2025, and that's just triple in a short amount of time. So the thing is, you analyze trends, marketing opportunities, and that's what I've always been able to do and been successful, is to move with the trends and sometimes be in front of them. And I think in the cannabis industry with W420 Radio Network, we are in front of the trend and getting good, solid third-party information out. Now, also what I like to do is discuss and tell you what I'm looking into 2022. These live podcasts, I like to go ahead, and as I mentioned, live podcasts, yes, to go to many conventions and events to start setting those up for 2022. Cross promotions with other podcasts that are a very effective way to continue and build audiences, but also partnerships and relevant ones that work and benefit everybody. And then what we're doing at W420 is we're going to come up with a custom segment for clients in 2022. So we can go ahead and make sure that it's a topic that we want our listeners to go ahead and listen to. But then what we will do for the client, we'll go ahead and then re-edit some of the benefits they would have for a customer. And then they can use that to go ahead and send out to their current clients for retention and the knowledge of what's happening and perhaps some products they didn't know. And then to go ahead and execute that out other platforms to obtain new clients. So it's kind of like a third party where it's more difficult just to talk about yourself, but if you have some professional like you, David, who discuss and answer these questions but get some statistical information, it brings in the listenership of the audience of the business person and makes it a lot more relevant. And so those are the things, besides continuing to build our audience and to open up more business platforms, but to go ahead and be innovative and different and lead the pack in terms of the cannabis industry broadcast side for 2022.
Yes, and by virtue of the fact that you're using podcast as your medium, many of the distinguished guests on this program subsequently syndicate the episode by posting it on their social media, posting these interviews on their websites, which they're free to do. So it gives them sort of a means to bullet point what it is that they do and get their message out. In some cases, they're using our interviews in place of introductory videos on their websites and their homepages in order to tell what is their company about. Then people like and syndicate it, and so forth.
You're right on all those particular points, and I think that's why W420 has gone from 0 to 2.4 million listeners in the last 2 years.
Yes, certainly true. And not only does it provide an easily syndicated media that people can pass around, and a voice for what people want to say, and a platform to hear many things, it is providing a very important alternative to one of the obstacles still facing the industry today.
Since marijuana is a federally prohibited substance, growers and distributors are prevented from advertising on radio and television. But that's not true on podcasting. The W420 Radio Network provides a legitimate alternative means for advertising in one's region and across the nation. So we have totally bypassed the restrictions of the dinosaur of standard media and given a fresh new alternative where advertisers would not normally reach. Hasn't that proven to be the case, Mark?
Yes, David, that is very spot on, and we've gone ahead and helped those different people that weren't available to go ahead and reach particular audiences and customers, but here on a podcast and on W420, you can achieve that.
Yes, indeed. And as people have, you can find out details about advertising with America's Cannabis Conversation on our website, W420radionetwork.com. So we have become a voice. We've become an outlet. We've gotten popular on the social networks. We have some top people in many, many industries here on the show. And it's all because of the vision. It just started out as an idea and is now a team of professionals providing weekly podcasts and more, and special reporting. Mark, in conclusion, if I were to ask you, what is your key message to our listeners out there as we go forward in 2020? What is your message about the program and the cannabis industry and what we can all achieve together as podcasters and listeners?
David, to be real simplistic, grow and learn with W420 in 2022, because we have the team, we have the professionalism, the capability to go ahead and continue to keep each and every person on the forefront of the industry based on trends, based on real actual occurrences, and also all the personalities that we have and also in the industry will be relevant and reveal all those in 2022.
Marc Corsi, founder and CEO of America's Cannabis Conversation of the W420 Radio Network. I'm reporter David Katzmeyer on the scene with our leader. Thank you for listening, and join us at W420RadioNetwork.com.
W420RadioNetwork.com.